I'm Jeanette Canes from Jewelry Arts Inc. And this is How to Make a Bezel Ring Part 7. I'm going to show you some advanced polishing techniques, and I'm going to use one of my most used wheels from my Essentials polishing kit. Ready?
Yeah.
So I want to show off the progress report. Look how good this is looking. So after we finished soldering, basically we went in with nippers in between and removed as much of that excess sheet sticking out as we possibly could, and then filed and tidied up. So pretty much now we're at the stage of like final cleanup, you know, I mean, not like the high shine, but just like, okay, now we're gonna go in and look at any little tiny spots that need whatever. Now, what can happen when you're cleaning up, if you get too carried away with the file, I'm gonna put my fingernail right next to it, is you can inadvertently file a little too deep and open up your seam, which is what happened right there. It happens to the best of us. We're just gonna fill it in with solder and then clean it up a little bit more. Because basically when you're filing here, it's very easy to like cut in a little bit, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, don't be shocked. I think that's the only spot that I see that is right there. Which, considering how many bezels and seams we have here, is not too shabby. You know, there's a little spot right here. I don't think the seam's open, but probably we could fill that in with a little bit of solder. So let me have this, and let me have your scissors and your tweezers. And what solder were we using at this point? We were at medium, yes? Yes? No, we were at hard still?
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll use medium because, I mean, we're essentially done with soldering anyway. Beautiful. But for something like this, I mean, we're just going to do it right on here, you know. Thank you. So I'll take the blue, which is the medium. And you can do this a couple of different ways. Like you can add the solder from the inside, and you can also add it from the outside. Because this has already been filed a little thin, I'm gonna add the solder from the outside to kind of bulk it up, you know what I mean, a little bit. Now, if you go back in and you see you have a little gap in your seam just because it wasn't filled originally, then I'll just fill it from the outside. But this looks like more it's just been worn away a little bit. So it's no big deal. We're gonna put, I don't know, 1 or 2 fat pieces of solder, and I'm gonna kind of half melt it, because this is a case of, you're kind of smearing. You know what I mean? You're like, you're filling that space and you're adding a little extra solder to act as metal, so that when you clean it up, you don't have like a real thin spot there. Double zero, grab a 0 with any luck. Yes. That's just to build the tension, by the way. There we go. And, you know, medium also is a really good solder for this because it spreads really easily. And so you know how normally I'm like a minimalist with the solder, we're gonna add a little tiny piece. This is not that. This is like add extra so that we have room to clean away. I'm gonna add 1 piece at a time though, just so that I can, you know, keep an eye on what's happening. So I'll just put a little paste flux there. Yeah, because this will go. This will do it. You see that? And you can just spread it a little bit. Now, that would be done if it was just a little tiny hole, but since it's a little thin there, I'm going to add another piece to beef it up a little bit so that when you clean it up, you've got a little more. Because sometimes it can get frustrating because like you fill a hole and then you clean up that and then basically you've got the same hole again once you get it all, you know, cleaned up. So that's why I'm trying to end up with a little excess. You see that how now I've purposely left a little extra because that way you can file and clean that up and get it flush and still be left with enough metal there to, you know, move on with our lives. And I don't think anything else needed any filling, but all I'll have you do is like pickle this, we'll clean this up, we'll take one last look at it and then we'll move on.
Pickle, file.
Yep. Pickle and file, and then what I'll do is I'll show you how to use one of the UFO wheels, the knife edge wheels, maybe the blue one, to go in between to do a little bit of like final smoothing before we actually, once that's all tidy, you know, and we've got everything clean, then we're gonna kind of round it out a little bit and then we'll start thinking about tweaking some of the bezels that have gotten misshapen. Okay? And so this is from the Essentials Cleanup Kit. I use these wheels a lot. This is the blue, which is the finer. So we're gonna use that, and it's the UFO shape, as Alexis calls them, or knife edge, if you wanna be proper. We're gonna use this to get in between, right in here, and like, it'll really beautifully clean up all of those connections, the side of the bezel, because sometimes you really need to be able to get in there to those little spots, okay? So we're gonna use the flex shaft, and you know, as usual, you want to be resting nice and comfortably, like this. And you see how that smooths out that little spot? Alexis, you wanna get a little close up of that? Yeah. Sorry, don't kill yourself in the process. You see what I mean? And this removes very, very little. Like if this were rougher, we could have used the white one, but at this point, we're not really trying to remove very much. We're trying to more just smooth, okay? So you can use this to get in, you see what I mean? How it'll beautifully clean up those little, you know, any little funkiness in here. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it really works well for stuff like this because again, you don't want something very aggressive. You're trying to smooth it out. A little shine is good, but it's just about getting a nice even surface.
Okay.
Because you're going to go all the way around.
Just in between.
Yep, pretty much in between. We can also go out here if we want to. We can move to a cylinder wheel, or you can just use this.
You're doing basically both sides of the connection.
Okay, you see what I mean? Like how that'll really smooth that out. But again, you have to make sure that you're not digging in, you know, you're just gliding along the surface.
So do I want to go around the entire bezel?
Yeah, I would do the whole thing at this point. I would go in between, I would go around the bezels.
Around every bezel.
And get everything really nice and clean.
To get to that sheen.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Because after that, we'll do a little rounding, we'll do a little reshaping of bezels. But this is going to give us, I think of it as a blank canvas. You know what I mean? Like we've removed the scratches, everything's nice and blended together. Mm-hmm. Whether we have a high shine at the end or not, this just gets everything really tidy.
Okay.
Okay?